Greetings, traveler.
Hey everyone, Season 9 has just been announced, and I'm going to go over everything that we already know. We are not going to talk about the hero reroll system in this video. That has its own separate video that I'm sure we'll link to somewhere here, so you can go check that out. First up, we have a change to the damage cap. All good, nothing crazy. I think this was a really nice little boost. It's not going to be a complete overhaul. Damage cap starts at 5. So essentially what does that mean? If you were to get really unlucky and you would take more than 5, you're now only taking 5. I think that's a pure benefit. I don't think there's anyone that's like, I want to deal 7 on turn 3. This is so unfair. No, it's fine. That's good. That just removes some outliers. Then we go to 10 damage on turn 4, which also stays in line with roughly what you would be taking around that time. It doesn't really make going 3-on-3 crazy powerful, because if we think about it, how much damage would you normally take if you go to tier 3 on turn 3? You'd generally have, let's say, a 2-drop, your hero is another 2 damage, and then another 2-drop or so, so you're maybe saving, let's say, 1 or 2 health, right? Depending on what the opponent has on the board. But especially the 10 damage cap, pretty much all the time you would be taking damage within that range, and it's only if somebody is truly high rolling against you that you are at the short end of that stick and you take more than 10. So all this really does is it just normalizes the damage a little bit and doesn't, it essentially removes these crazy outliers, which is a good thing in my opinion. Then we have some new heroes. First up, we have the hero power Arcane Knowledge. The next tavern spell you buy will cost 1 less, and this unlocks on turn 3. So this means that you cannot use this hero power before turn 3. It's a 0 gold hero power that you can then use to make the next tavern spell cost 1 less. I do assume that this stacks, where you can use it 1 turn and then it carries over to the next, because it doesn't specify the next tavern spell you buy this turn. So we will have to see how that works. But overall, this looks good. This is something that you can use to bank a gold and then get an advantage with a spell you see. You can think of a hero like Murloc Holmes, where you have to guess correctly to get the gold, whereas here you're automatically getting the gold. However, the Murloc Holmes gold is superior because you can use that on anything. You can use that to level, buy a unit, and buy spells, and this gold is only for spells. But it's nice, right? Gaining a little gold here and there is always good, and this can make it easier to buy strike oil, so I'll definitely mess around with that. Then we have the next hero power, Galaxy's Lens. You get a copy of the last tavern spell you cast. Each turn, your hero power costs 1 less. So similar to Togwaggle, you are going to get a reduction on your hero power the longer you don't use it. So it starts at 3 and then it's going to go down all the way to 0. I'm assuming you probably want to use it at 0, so you can go back up to 3 and start discounting again. Now, the way how this would work is turn 1, you wouldn't use it, probably, right? It seems bad to use it on turn 1. So it would go down to 2 on turn 2. Then on turn 2, you'd probably level. And then turn 3, this would be 1 gold. What you could theoretically do is, when it costs 1 gold, you could buy a unit, buy a spell like Careful Investment, cast the Careful Investment, use this for 1 gold, get another Careful Investment, and that's already a really nice turn that gives you a lot of money. Obviously, there's also the Giga Chat play, which is buy a strike oil, copy the strike oil. I'll definitely try that. But this just, again, looks like a fun little hero. I haven't looked at the armor values yet, so we will have to see just how much armor they start off with and if we're going to see buffs or nerfs. But the hero powers themselves do look nice. So this looks like another fun spell-oriented hero. And then the last one here is Xeric, I believe his name is, because we have Xeric's Cloning Gallery and it's standard from a long, long time ago. But the hero power is called Cloning Gallery. You summon an exact copy of a friendly minion, and you can do this only once per game. So this is similar to Reno when we think about it. We save up a 0-cost hero power that we can only use once per game, and we are trying to get the most out of it in the position that we're in. This is probably better than Reno, but it's kind of difficult, because Reno, if you hit a brand, that's obviously better, right? Double brand does not matter. But you can use Xeric on something that already has some enhancements on it. Now, it is difficult because you would have to wait a very long time to get something that you're then happy to copy, to have a lot of enchantments on it. So maybe I still prefer Reno, but there are some sick moments here where you can maybe switch your hero power and then roll into Zarek, copy a huge cleave that you already have with Wind Fury. That's just something that comes up. Quite interesting to see just how this plays out, and if I like it a lot more or a lot less than Reno. Right now, I'm actually a little undecided because the thought of a golden brand is just very cool, and, you know, copying a brand obviously doesn't do that much. But, you know, getting another Theotar, for instance, is that's pretty good. But then again, goldening him is also fine. So you really do need to get the benefit of having tons of enchantments on a unit already, or just have it be big and then copy that. Then Lich has been changed. At first glance, she does the same thing, and she basically does the same thing. Now you just take 2 damage instead of the damage from the Tavern tier. That is, generally speaking, a buff. You're going to be taking less damage in the late game, but you're going to take a little bit more in the early game, or if you hero power a tier 1 card, you are still going to take 2 damage. But if you hero power, say, a tier 5 spell or unit later on, you're only going to take 2. For the most part, you probably have Soulwinder or Archimont on your board when you play Lich, so this doesn't really change that much. Shudderwalk stays pretty much the same, but gets the same restriction as we saw on the earlier new hero. Now you can only use this on turn 3. I think that's fair. I think most of the unfair Shudderwalk games come from hitting a Picky Eater on turn 1 or hitting Southsea Busker on turn 1 and either getting way more stats than you should have or way more money than you should have. This is probably fair. I will have to play with it myself to see exactly how good it feels. I don't know if the armor value is being adjusted or not, but it did feel really good hitting a Pick Eater on turn 1 and Shudderwalk, and it felt really bad if you were the one that had to face the Shudderwalk, because you pretty much can't win that fight. So yeah, overall, I feel like that's a good change. And then Gallywix is going to be banned in elemental lobbies, which makes sense because right now Gallywix is not that powerful. We have been playing trinkets for the past 4 months, which means that there is an additional way to win the game. You can leverage your trinket to get value. If we are in a vanilla meta, which we are going back to, right now we're going to have at least 2 months of just vanilla Battlegrounds, which means there's no quests, no buddies, no trinkets, no extra stuff. Your hero power matters a lot more, and Gallywix is just one of these heroes that can run away with the game like crazy. And in elemental lobbies, that is definitely the case because you have something like Elemental to cycle with and then Rock to buff. Elementals are just very good if you're going to spam cards. So that does make a lot of sense. And the fact that we're going back to a vanilla meta is also very normal. This has been the cycle the past year or two. I don't know if it's going to be exactly the same, but I can speak to the past. We've had new mechanic, and then we go back to vanilla, and then generally after about 2 months, they reintroduce an older mechanic, something like quests, something like buddies, and then that shakes up the meta for the mid-season patch. But now we're going into probably at least 2 months of back to vanilla Battlegrounds with new cards. So then you do want to make sure that your power heroes are a little nerfed, right? So we have Shudderwalk getting nerfed, Gallywix getting nerfed. So these are all very normal, sensible things, and I'm glad they're doing them. Removed cards. A couple of sad cards here for me. Phalanx, Sunscreener, Nest Matron, Rendell, Nala, Pharynx, and Lucky Egg being removed. I really like playing with Phalanx and with Nala. I think that the menagerie is super flexible because you can fit whatever in there. So you're generally not looking for super specific cards. You can just buff whatever and make it work. And Phalanx and Nala obviously are big pieces of that. Now we will likely see some other menagerie cards, but still, these were really, really fun. Rendell is also super fun for economy. Sunscreener, whatever. Pharynx, kind of whatever, was a lot more influential in different metas, especially with Nightbane back when that was a thing. And then, Nest Matron, Lucky Egg, kind of whatever. All right, we have some new cards. So we have Mutated Lasher. Death Rattle. For the rest of this combat, your odd tier minions have +2/+3. This doesn't seem that good at first glance because you're like, okay, whatever, +2/+3. But it does say for the rest of the combat, your minions have. So that applies to tokens. So that could be a little Goldrin-esque almost, where pretty much all tokens are 1-cost minions, which is odd, obviously. So if you have Golden Mutated Lasher and then say something like Macaw or something, then you have quite a big stat boost. So we're going to have to see exactly what happens with beasts. Is Goldrin staying? Is Macaw staying? We don't know that yet. This can be a combo piece if both those cards are still in, where you can run this instead of Goldrin until you get Goldrin and then switch out of it. So interesting to say the least. But I don't think it's super powerful outside of that, because for a 5-drop, getting +2/+3 just regular buff is not that much, of course. Then Resourceful Soldier is a neutral tier 3. It gives you +5/+2 or +2/+5 on a minion. That just looks nice. This just looks like a good card that I'm very happy to buy because I'm getting a 2/5 body, which is, say, you know, a Whelp Smuggler value, but then you're also putting 5/2 on a shield, or you're putting 2/5 on a minion that already has high damage. That is relevant. So this just looks like a nice, good card to buy on tier 3, possibly at just a little bit too strong tempo-wise. Silver-Handed Recruit. Battlecry, give your other even tier minions +4/+4. That just looks like a really fun thing to do with Bran. Even though Bran is odd, you can have a bunch of even minions on your board, be on tier 6, roll this minion, and then pump, get +8/+8 on everything that's, you know, not the Bran. Looks like a lot of fun. Also, my editor told me that this is a reference to Cyberpunk, but I don't know anything about it. So if you guys have seen any other cards or you want to tell me about this card, please just let me know in the comments what all these references are, because I know Hearthstone is pretty famous for sneaking those in, and a lot of the time they just go right over. So yeah, please feel free to let me know. Then Saloon Dancer is a returning card, but it's now a 6-drop. I believe it was a 4-drop a long time ago. Whenever you cast a Tavern spell, give 2 other friendly minions +4/+4. So we can think about this a little bit like Nala. We saw Nala being removed now. This is now another spell buffer. Also doesn't have a type and says it buffs 2 other friendly minions, so it can never buff itself. If we cast the spell, we're getting +8/+8. If we think about it in terms of Nala, Nala was giving +8/+8 if you had 4 types on the board. So you would only need 2 minions on the board for this to be able to buff them. Now the downside here is that it's going to buff whatever, and you can't really focus fire it, because let's say if you have a cleave and you play Nala, you know the cleave is getting buffed. With this thing, unless you're only running 2 minions, which is unlikely, you don't know if the cleave's getting buffed. So it can be a little bit more RNG and a bit frustrating if you have certain minions you want to get buffed and others not. But overall, looks okay for a little bit. I suppose I would need to have a really good setup like with Nala. So some spell generation, and then sure, you know, this could be my game plan. Then we have Selfless Hero coming back. It's a pretty iconic minion for Battlegrounds. So if you're very new and you've never played with Selfless Hero, essentially what the end game looks like when Selfless Hero is in the game, you get 4 strong units, you get your Selfless, you get your Titus, and you get a Blaster. So what you do is you have your Blaster, removes all the shields from the enemies, kills Leroy and all that good stuff, then kills your own Selfless Hero. You have Titus and 4 strong things alive, and you put 4 divine shields on your board. And if your Titus is golden, you put 6, but you only have 5 left, so you divine shield your whole board, which is a really strong end game combo. So this is pretty much what every high level player was doing in the end game, is just roll for golden Selfless. So it's a bit interesting that they're bringing that back, because I thought they removed it because that's what everyone was doing the whole time. But hey, you know, I know how to play with it. I thought it was fun, so I'll just do it again. So very, very good end game card. All right, then we are at the removed Mechs. So that's quite a big shift. Wow, guys. We have no more drone, no kaboombot, no scraper, no beatboxer, which I'm pretty happy about, because beatboxer was so good, but it kind of turned every mech lobby into a beatboxer game, where you were always trying to get beatboxer, because beatboxer plus a Quartertron was infinite money, and you know, infinite money is pretty good, turns out. Then Foe Reaper, which is so iconic for the game. That is a bit of a, yeah, that's a bit of a shock, man. No more Foe Reaper. Wow, what are we gonna do? Annoyer Troop out, Cord Puller, and then Lasso. Man, that is a huge shift in how you play mechs. No more Scraper, no more Drone, no more Cleave, no more Beatboxer. All right, let's see what we're getting instead. We have Shield of the Legion, which is a Mechajaraxxus demon. This is not an actual 1-drop, so don't be alarmed. And they're like, what? On tier 1, I get a 7/3 Divine Shield? But no, this is Mechajaraxxus, so but good, right? You can put Divine Shield on the demon or a mech now. Then we have a 2/2 that gives Magnetic Wind Fury, so we can see that Foe Reaper may have been a little bit too strong if this is such an easy Wind Fury option. Other than that, it's just a 4/4, so not amazing early, but not awful, right? If we think about a 4/4, that is acceptable, you know, not something I'm super happy about, but acceptable. Then we have Arcanotron activated. It's a 4/1 taunt. When you cast a tavern spell, give a friendly mech 3/2. This immediately reminds me a little bit of another 3-drop we had a while ago, where you could just cast a tavern spell and your whole board would get extra attack, and that was super broken, because you would just stay on tier 3, spam a bunch of spells, get a giga amount of attack on your board, and then just play some Deflectobots and Pharynx and all that. So this is not quite that good. This puts +3/+2 on a mech. Still okay, I would say. Still something that you can pick up in combination with a Deflectobot and then pump a lot of spells. You know, every time you cast a coin, every time you cast a Careful Investment, that does add up. So especially if you only have 1 or 2 mechs and they both have Divine Shields, that's not a bad unit to just pick up. I don't think I would go and pick this up randomly. I think I would really want to have a cheap spell in the shop alongside it, and preferably a Divine Shield or a Divine Shield already on my board. Then we have the new 6-drop Dr. Boom's Monster. It's a magnetic and it has +2/+2 each time you have magnetized this game. Wow. Okay, that's gonna stack. That's going to be pretty crazy. I can see why Foe Reaper is out. That would be really dumb if you just put this on Foe Reaper. So what this means is that if you can generate a lot of magnetics, you can roll into this into the late game. And the rule with magnetics is that magnetics go back into the pool after you magnetize. So while there are technically only 7 Booms monsters in the game, you magnetize it, then it goes back in the pool. So you can keep rolling these. So if this is on like +50/50, every time you roll another Booms monster, it's now, oh, you know, 52/52, 54/54. That's obviously very nice. We can see there's a lot of emphasis on magnetics here. Holo Rover is a 5-drop. It's a 4/8 Divine Shield, and whenever it attacks, you get a magnetic mech. So let's rewind a little bit. Wind Fury on Holo Rover. That seems like a lot of fun. Now we can get lots of magnetics here, especially if you have a golden Wind Fury Holo Rover. We can generate tons of magnetics and then just get ready for the Booms monster and get a ton of buffs like that, which is fun, but definitely feels more fair than Beatboxer, because Beatboxer was just pretty much infinite stats. That's why Beatboxer felt so unfair. You would routinely have Beatboxers with 7,000 health, 9,000. It just goes crazy when you have all the Accordotrons stacked up and you basically have infinite money. Marquee Ticker. At the end of the turn, get a random tavern spell. That's sort of like a Rendell, if you will, but it's a type. It's an end of turn and it gives you economy. That's nice, I would say. That's fun. That seems like a really fun early triple. There are a lot of tier 1 things, like you can get a coin or you can get apples, and that's not so fun. But you can also get something relevant like a strike oil, or, you know, get a telescope or something like that. So this still seems okay, and because it is a mech, you could put module on it and all of a sudden it's fine. So this is definitely more fun than Rendell, because with Rendell you pretty much had to sell it fast because you couldn't buff it, whereas a Marquee Ticker you could actually buff and keep around for quite a while. Mechanome Interpreter. That's a 2-drop. Whenever you play a magnetic minion, give it +2/+3. So play is also magnetize, so you should get the boost whenever you magnetize. It'd be a little bit weird if it didn't. So that's okay. I think we do need to have a magnetic in the shop with this to be happy to buy it, or you buy a pair of these and you take a little bit of a risk and say, I'm going to just assume that I roll magnetics and get the value, because if you're buying a 2/3 on tier 2, that's not good. This thing needs to do something. But very nice if you get it in conjunction with a magnetic, because then you're getting an additional +2/+3, so you pretty much instantly recuperate the loss of tempo by getting a 2/3. You get an additional 2/3 on your magnetic, and then any magnetic you play from then on is just pure bonus. So it seems really good to buy in conjunction with a magnetic for tempo. Moonsteel Juggernaut says, at the end of your turn, get a 3/3 magnetic satellite and improve this. So what I'm assuming is going to happen is the 3/3 is going to turn into a 4/4, into a 5/5, etc. And this minion is generated by this effect. So should work with something like Drakari, and then we get additional satellites, which gives us additional magnetics, which works with a lot of cards we've already seen, the Dr. Boom's Monster, the 2-drop that buffs. Seems like a really strong card to triple into early. Quite interesting to see how mechs are being reworked. Then Lullabot is now a 1-drop, but it only affects health, which is still pretty good. If you think about it, that's a Rockpool Hunter on turn 1 with upside. Fine. That's a card I'm pretty happy to buy, because then I have a 2/4 on turn 2, and by the time it's turn 3, I already have a 2/5. That's reasonable, really. And then you can still buff it up with another magnetic later when it already has a lot of health, so seems nice. Clunker Drunker is back to being a tier 4, and that is very likely because Beatboxer is out of the game. This was way too strong with Beatboxer, but now they have reverted the nerf. This started out as a tier 4, Then they put it to tier 5, and now it's back to 4. Mechadraxes, nothing changed on the text, but we have seen a new Mecha Demon earlier, the one that gives Divine Shield. So that has been introduced into the Mecha J pool. Arid Atrocity goes from summoning a 7/7 and give it an additional 7/7 to summon a 7/7 improved by each friendly minion type that died this combat. So at first I was a little puzzled about this text change, but what I believe this allows you to do now is run this with Poet, because this says summon a 7/7, but it is improved by each friendly minion type that has died this combat, which is a combat buff. So if Poet is next to it, it will remember that buff. The previous version just said summon a 7/7 golem, and it has extra buffs for whatever has died this combat. So that is very specifically, that's not something you can enhance. So I'm not sure on that at all. So please don't go crazy and be like, oh, it's broken. I have to see. I don't even know if Poet is staying or not. That would be the only real way I interpret this change. But if you guys in the comments have a different idea of, oh no, this text also changes this or that, please let me know and we can figure it out together. Automaton is +2/+2. That is a slight buff, I believe. I think we started off at 3/2. That was way too strong. Then we went to 2/1, and now we're back to 2/2. Now that trinkets are out, you can no longer roll Automaton Portrait, and it's probably fine to make it a 2/2, which I think is fair. It's not like Automaton is crazy right now or anything. I rarely ever see it. So okay to buff that a little bit and see what happens. Holy mackerel. Oh no, they did it, chat. They brought him back. After another friendly minion loses Divine Shield, gain Divine Shield. Woo! Okay, so some of you have never played with this card. This is quite an old card, but man, can it be infuriating. What you could do with this is taunt 2 Holy Mackerels, or if you golden them, you could play 3 Holy Mackerels. And now every time they hit 1 Holy Mackerel, all the other Holy Mackerels regain Divine Shield. And then you hit another one, and then the other ones regain Divine Shield. So this can ping pong for a very long time. Especially there is some things where you can have 1 taunted Holy Mackerel, and then you have a boatload of Divine Shields that just go off one by one. So they hit into the Mackerel. The Mackerel loses the shield. You hit with your shield. You reshield the Mackerel. They hit the Mackerel. I already hear you say, oh, but what about Leroy? It is true. When this was massively oppressive, Leroy was not in the game. Now that Leroy is in the game, you can counter this. But you don't always have a Leroy on your board. That's the thing. And especially if there's more than 1 taunt, the Leroy doesn't always work. So this is still a very infuriating card to lose to, because it introduces a lot of combat RNG. Because the Holy Mackerel, it's not really infinite damage, although there are some builds where this can be infinite damage. Actually, I'm not sure if that's possible anymore now that Vol'jin got changed. What you could do back in the day was get a 0 damage Mackerel, meaning that it would never attack, and then you would have another Mackerel. And then 1 Mackerel would attack, and then it would reshield the taunted Mackerel, and then the taunted Mackerel would have 0 attack. And then it would attack your taunted Mackerel, and then the shield would jump back to your other Mackerel. Your 0 power Mackerel would not attack, so the turn would go back to the damage Mackerel. The damage Mackerel attacks, reshields, and it's a loop. As long as I don't have Wind Fury, it works, which was really freaky to do. But Vol'jin can no longer do that, so unless there's another way to make a 0 power minion, that might not be possible. But still, this is a super, very impactful card, or at least it definitely was back in the day. Then we have some spells being removed. No more Stimulant, Pointy Arrow, Ritual of Growth, Beanstalk, and Buddy Up. Stimulant is really whatever. Pointy Arrow, same thing. Ritual of Growth, I use this card a lot. The amount of times where I roll on tier 4, especially when the Trinket Cathedral doubles the growth, you can buy it on tier 4 and make 6 drops on tier 4. Trinkets are out, so that's obviously no longer a thing. But you can stack them, play double Ritual. You can go to tier 5, use this to get some 6s, so I'm going to miss that. Beanstalk is out, which was such a high roll to get from the Rodeo Panda or from anything that generates a random spell. So that's probably okay. That was, this was a super, super strong spell to get. And then no more Buddy Up, which I guess is fair. Buddies do tend to break the game. We just saw that with the Zephyr's Buddy Disco Shuffler Infinite Loop. So if you haven't seen that, we have a video on it. Probably, again, going to link that somewhere here. and you can check that out. So it's probably for the best that buddies are out for now. New spells. Alliance Flag gives a minion 4 attack or 4 health. I can see why they had to remove Pointy Arrow because that's just strictly worse. They still have the 1-cost spell that gives 3 HP, but it also gives Taunt. So there is some upside to that, so I can see why that stays. That seems decent. You know, you were never truly sad to put Pointy Arrow on a shield, so same thing with this. You could put 4 attack on a shield, and 4 HP somewhere is actually kind of okay. So yeah, decent. Boundless Potential is a 4-cost tier 4 spell. It's a choose one, you discover a minion of your tier or a tavern spell of a tier higher. What I can see this being used for is fish for Golden Touch while you're on tier 4, because then you can get to tier 5. At first glance, this doesn't seem that great to me, but I have been wrong on occasion. So maybe this is actually broken, but this feels a little expensive to pay 4 gold to discover from my own tier. And then the tavern spell of a tier higher, when I think about tier 5 spells, most of the time it's Golden Touch, so then we have to think about tier 6 spells. I guess, let's see, right? Because there's going to be a new tier 6 spell. That definitely changes things. So let's maybe circle back to this one. Yeah, here we go. Fandrel's Fortune. Discover a choose one minion. It has both effects combined. Okay, well, that's going to be hard to judge right now because there's all the other types that are still going to be revealed. So we have to see how many choose one effects there are. If this is really good, then we can use Boundless Potential on tier 5 to fish for Fandrel. So that's something, yeah. Knock off Wisdom Ball. Okay, your next 2 refreshes are helpful. Again, this is a little bit of a reference to, well, not a little bit, it's a complete reference to Wisdom Ball, which is a quest reward. It's a quest reward that makes your tavern helpful sometimes. What that means is there is a list of effects that can happen. So something like you roll all minions that were already on your board, which is one of the better ones. If you have a board of, say, 5 units, then suddenly the shop will be those 5 units, which is really good to get triples, of course, if you had a pair. Now you get a triple. Another Wisdom Ball outcome is something like get a bunch of utility minions in the shop, so then you'll see Bran, you'll see Titus, and all that. And there's a bunch of things that are helpful. There's also some that are not so helpful, like you get a shop full of Tough Tusks when you're not playing Coolboard. that happens sometimes. So the Wisdom Ball can troll a little bit, but for the most part, it's really good. So I can see this being very interesting. And that is another tier 6 spell that you could get from the Boundless Potential on tier 5. You're on 5, you buy a Boundless Potential for 4 gold, you hit a Wisdom Ball, you get that for free, so you don't have to pay the 3 gold. You use that, you roll. So now we've invested 5 gold, and now you have a helpful shop that you can spend another 5 gold and whatever you've got banked. Yeah, I can see that, right? I can see that being good. That can help you get the cards you need, so sure. And Wisdom Ball is just fun to play with. I can imagine having like 5 Wisdom Balls ready to go. That's a YouTube video right there. All right, I'm calling it. We have another tier 6 spell. Wow, a lot of tier 6 spells. This is a choose one, get a random tier 6 minion or 2 random tier 5 minions. I don't love the random tier 6 minion for 4 gold, but 2 random tier 5 minions sound pretty good. And I do think that this is probably at its absolute best when you generate it off something like the Rodeo Panda, the tier 5 that generates a spell, because then you play that with Bran, you play the Rodeo, you get a Road Less Traveled. The Road Less Traveled gives you another Rodeo or a Bran or anything that gives you economy, and you can just keep going. So I can see this being a really nice economy booster. To get the random tier 6, I'm not a huge fan, unless you're in a lobby where, you know, there's just half the tier 6s are good for you, but most of the time that's not the case. Time Management is a tier 3 Tavern spell, but it does cost 4 gold, which is a lot. Choose one, give your minions +2/2, or at the start of the next turn, give your minions 4/4. So this immediately reminds me of the green spell that is like +2/+2 to everything from the type, but this costs 1 extra gold, and the upside is that you can throw it on everything, whereas the +2/+2 only works on minions of the type. Now, if you cast it on something like a Phalanx, which has been removed, it would buff the whole board regardless. So if you are really, really strong, you could spend 4 gold on this and get 4/4 next turn. On tier 3, it's a little bit weird because if you're really strong, you're probably leveling. This is more something that, again, you generate and then cast for the +4/+4, or you somehow have just enough gold to buy it and it makes sense. 4 gold spells are awkward, and especially things that don't make more stuff. 4 gold for a scope, you're still getting a unit. It's already a bit awkward to buy, but you're getting a unit so you can fill your board. This thing, if you don't have a full board, you're losing quite a lot of value, and it's hard to have a full board if you're spending 4 gold on a spell. So you can see how this is a little tricky to use. So I don't think it's giga important to get this early because it's so hard to and level and fill your board and buy this, but it's more something that you just pick up when the gold just happens to make sense. So let's say we are already on tier 4, we have a full board, we roll, we have 4 gold left, and this thing pops up. I'm like, you know what? Okay, let me buy that. Let's put 4 on my guys. That's going to allow me to level to 5 quite cleanly. Or if I'm really in a pickle, I'll take 2-2. Although I think most of the time I'm just going to take 4-4 and get more effect in it over the long run. Then Saloon's Finest was changed to be a 5-drop. Sure, that's fair. We've just introduced tons of tier 6 spells, so it's good to change that pool a little bit. I don't think this breaks the game or anything, not at first glance, but maybe there's something I'm missing. Probably this is just a little shuffle to make the tavern tiers work. Corpse goes to a tier 5 instead of a tier 4. Again, that's probably just a bit of a shuffle to make the tavern tiers work. I don't think this was like broken on tier 4 or anything like that. All right, and with that, we have reached the end of the reveal. Make sure to let me know what you guys thought about it and tune in, guys. We have a whole reveal schedule for you. We are going to talk about every single thing that's revealed. I'll talk about it, and yeah, I'm definitely making this way too long, and Zot is going to keep this in because that's what he does to bloopers. All right, so enjoy this. Have a good one. See you guys.